Ladies and gentlemen, welcome back to All Beer Inside, back to the brewery edition of the episodes at this time. Joining me today is Erin from Louis Cifer Brewery. Thank you for hosting us today. Truly appreciate it.
Thank you for having me on.
Like I say, we're very thankful that you're more than willing to have us interview you for the show. So
Appreciate that.
Appreciate it. So what's the beer story?
Well, our beer story is I've been doing this for 27 years. I've been into craft beer. I had been the first server hired at the first beer market on the Esplanade a billion years ago. And that's what started my love for craft beer. We had Stephen Beaumont, who's like a beer god to me, an international reviewer. And he did all of our beer training, which was quite extensive. A lot of the beers at the beer market were international craft beer, but everything was, for the most part, craft beer with some Ontario craft beer in that. So my love for craft beer started there. So as the craft beer industry in Ontario started growing a little bit more, it was everything I could do to get my hands on different styles of beer. Fast forward, after years of working in restaurants, I decided I wanted to open up my own place. And my husband and I, we decided on a location. And then when we were talking about the beer lineup, I wanted to do something different than everybody else. Everybody else was still Labatt's, Molson, the same usual stuff, of which I didn't drink any of that anyway. My passion was for craft beer. And at that time, this is 10 years ago when we opened up Stout Irish Pub, there were very few craft breweries in Ontario. So I called the president of Ontario Craft Brewing Association and I said, send me everybody you've got. Send me every member we're going to do exclusively craft beer. We're going to have the largest bottle and can selection that we can and 24 taps. So he started sending me, everybody caught wind, came down to Toronto from Stratford, from all over the place. And at this time, a lot of these breweries, the owners of the breweries were also the delivery guy and the brewer. They were their own marketing, their marketing basics. It was just silver cans with a label on it. It wasn't there yet, but I had this gut instinct that it was going to just boom because we had been 15 years from the international craft beer boom. We were ready for the next one. And Ontario was really a laggard province when it came to craft beer in Canada, and there was lots of room in the market. So we did exclusively Ontario craft beer in our fridges. I mean, I'd be picking up literally cases of beer from the Shoppers Drug Mart post office because they didn't have any logistics. There were no delivery channels back then for a lot of these companies. We were the only ones carrying a lot of these beers. So that was 10 years ago. And then a couple of years into opening that, we had a lot of success with the beer program, really taking craft beer to the everyday person, because we all love the beer bar volos and say what, and there was maybe 5 places that you could get exclusive Ontario craft beer, but it was just the super beer geeks that were going to that. Yeah. The average customer was not going to those places, so we wanted to introduce it to everybody and really educate people about craft beer and why it's a superior product to macro breweries. So a couple of years into it, we had a lot of success with the craft beer program. And we decided, actually it was my husband, he had said, we should open up a brew pub. I said, well, if we want to open up a brew pub, then you are going to have to leave your job so you can run the brewery. I'm an operations person. So that's what he did. He left his job after 22 years and came in and opened up the brewery side of things. And we haven't looked back since. We've got a fantastic brewer with us, but that's really the nutshell of how we came to be Louis Cifer. And we were the only one in the East End other than Mill Street, which is a fantastic brew pub down in the distillery. We're the only ones in the East End. And now there's like 15 of us companies.
You're technically in Greektown, right?
We are technically in Greektown. Yeah.
Cool. Awesome. If you don't mind me asking, what field did your husband used to be in? Because I find there's really a correlation between what people did coming to this. So.
No correlation. He was a letter carrier for Canada Post.
Whoa, that's first.
Yes. So it's funny because he got into craft beer. He was a Creemore drinker.
Okay.
Awesome beer. Again, one of the very few craft beers that you could find on tap anywhere. And it was always myself who was the one who went in the liquor store, and then we would sit down and we would talk beer. And then years ago, he made a beer with our friend, and they finished it. We had a dinner party. He's like, okay, let's try it. And they tried it, and they're like, it's not bad. And then they're like, Erin, try this. I'm like, I don't know. So I tried it. I'm like, you guys, this beer's infected. It's. They're like, no, it's a sours. I'm like, this isn't a sours. This is an infected.
Yeah.
This is going back 10 years ago. But he started falling in love with all the different beers as well many, many years ago, and really started getting involved in the craft beer scene along with me, doing events, going to events. You know, we got hooked up to every event possible. And we're exposed to so much great stuff and made lifetime friends with other brewery owners. And so his passion and his belief in myself, the project, himself, and where we could go with this is really what gave him the confidence to leave his pension behind.
That's a government job on top of that. That's big.
It was a big, bold move on his part, but I needed his help, not only as my partner in life, but also my partner in the business. And so we're very lucky that we still work opposite shifts.
Yeah.
He's in the brewery at 7 in the morning. I come in at noon. So he's got a lot of work to do himself, and then I've got my work that I have to do.
Plus, you do have quite the brew house from what I've seen.
We just actually purchased this in the spring, right before COVID. $160,000.
Yeah.
But you know what? It helped us get through COVID, because with our old brewery system, we would have never been able to keep up with the capacity. It was such a manual old system that this has worked out very well for us.
Awesome. So you brought me some delicious looking beers to try.
I did.
What am I trying here first in this fabulous glass?
That is the coconut lemongrass Thai PA. So the story behind that beer, it's the only beer I've ever made. It's a recipe that I came up with for International Women's Day before we even had a brewery. It was just at Stout, and a friend of mine who works for another brewery, he's like, you should come down and brew a beer for International Women's Day, because there was one girl in their entire company. So he's like, the two of you brew it. I said, well, I don't know much about brewing the beer. He's like, come up with a recipe. So I came up with it, and he's like, you want to do what?
Yeah.
And I'm like, let's try it. Well,
The nose is beautiful.
yes,
What's the alcohol percentage on this, roughly?
6.5.
Oh, yeah. Coconut.
But not overbearing. It's well
Wow.
balanced.
6.5 too, eh?
It sneaks up on you.
No, you don't get that at all. Coconut's just dancing on my tongue.
Yes, and I use Citra and Cascade hops in there, so it's grapefruit forward. We really don't do a lot of big, bold, hoppy, bitter beers, because that's for the hardcores, and we found that everybody was doing that. Whereas our client base, they're not beer geeks, they don't understand that world, and they're afraid of IPAs because that's all they've ever tried.
Yeah.
So when they try this, it's like, whoa, this was unexpected.
Yeah, the flavor, it's just, the coconut is just beautifully dancing on my palate.
Thank you. It was our first medal winner at the Ontario Craft Brewing Association, as well as it's the first beer we launched in the LCBO. So I started on a high, ended on a high. I don't know if I'll make another beer, because I'm so happy with that. That's my little pride and joy. And
Hey, if you're batting 1,000, why go back up to the plate? So.
and we've got an amazing brewer anyway, so I don't need to prove anything to anyone. He does a great job.
It's a very tasty beer. I like the coconut. This is a great summertime beer for me. So very, very tasty. Surprisingly, when you told me 6.5, I'm like, huh? So yeah, very tasty beer. So for the Louis Cifer brand, what were some roadblocks and difficulties you ran into creating this brew pub, this beautiful brew pub?
Well, finding a location. It was. It took us 1.5 years to find the right location, because you've got to look at so much in engineering, in growth of the brewery. So when we found this place, first of all, Stout is 5 minutes that way, and our house is 5 minutes that way, and we knew this neighborhood well. The East End didn't have anything going on. So finding the location was the hardest thing, but when we found it, it was like, this is the ideal. It's a huge place. I mean, it's 4,000 square feet and a lot to fill, with the rent being what it is in the Danforth. It's like, well, this better be successful. Yeah. So finding a location was the hardest thing. Construction, I mean, there's definitely always hiccups and delays, and
That's everywhere.
You know, you spend hundreds of thousands more than you expect, and you take months longer than you expect, and but the vision was very clear. We had a lot of support and help with designers, but that was part of the growing pains when you open up a place. There weren't really any huge roadblocks except at the very beginning with getting the manufacturing license. So we had all of our brewing friends making from all the other companies making beer for us on tap because we didn't have a brewery running for like 5 months. So it's like, welcome to our brew pub. Here, try this other people's beer.
Had this beer that we had to contract.
Yeah, I know. Yeah, but that's what you have to. That's what we had to do.
But I mean, it seems everything's been. I mean, outside of COVID, obviously things were picking up because when I came on a random Saturday, Easter time, so no real sports on TV, and you guys were pretty full. So
yeah.
And there's a lot of foot traffic from what I've seen too.
This neighborhood is a great destination neighborhood. We've got Chester subway station right there. The new bike lanes that we've added, there's a lot more physical traffic coming out. The extension with the Cafe TO program has been a lifesaver for us. So we've been very lucky because of this location to do what we did. And plus everybody turned into an alcoholic when the shutdown happened. So we were very busy with deliveries and takeout beer at the door, and that kept us alive. And, I think...
I'm very jealous of Ontario being allowed to deliver beer because where we live, it's not... So where you have the LCBOs, we actually have a store where I could buy whatever beers I want, which is one advantage to living in Quebec. But the disadvantage is I can't have my local brewery deliver beer to me. So.
Yeah, we got it was overdue. The AGCO they did it in a lot of areas. So having this happen and they kind of went, all right, everything, go for it all. It was like, and it won't go back. I know it won't go back to the old way. And it's been so helpful for us small businesses because we're the heart of Ontario is small business.
100%. I completely agree with that. It's fantastic that you get to deliver beer in Ontario. And it's all Ontario. I guess it's a flat fee for certain places.
For us in particular, we're delivering ourselves. Okay. So it could be anywhere from my husband to our brewer to myself. I'm dropping off beer right after this interview. I've got to go drop off an order. But when phase 3 started, the beer deliveries dropped off significantly because everybody was going back to work. And so all the day drinking kind of slowed down a little bit. So we're not doing as much in deliveries, and we were really just doing the GTA. And it was free delivery over $75, which it still is. And we still do delivering, but it's just not as rampant as it was during the shutdown.
But do you feel you're prepared? You already kind of had an e-commerce ready to go, and then...
No. In fact, it was my husband who told me, it was 5 days after we shut down, and then he was like, I was talking with the guys at Left Field, and he's like, they're doing gangbusters in delivering, because they were always doing that. We weren't. There wasn't a demand for us because we're a brew pub, so people would come here and drink or pick up beer. And he said they are busy and going crazy. And I'm like, what? So immediately I got on our website, started building an e-commerce thing, started advertising, and boom, within 24 hours, we were in business.
That's great.
It was a great pivot.
Yeah, and it definitely helps that you can I like to say send happiness to people when they're sitting at home.
We were bringing joy 473 mils at a time every day.
Plus, during COVID times, drinking is just like the airport, 6 a.m., half a beer.
Yep.
So, fantastic. Louis Cifer, where does that idea come from?
So you know who Louis Cifer is.
Yeah.
Okay. So it's a bit of a slow burn. Not everybody understands right at the beginning. I have a very good friend of mine, Grant Millard, of ours, and he is a brand manager. And so I was very lucky to probably get $150,000 worth of branding everything for not very much money because he's such an amazing guy. And he did a whole bunch of different name renditions to, suit the neighborhood, suit who we were. And one of them was Louis Cifer, and I'm like, that's the one, that's the name. And I told my parents we're going to go with more of a devil thing, sinful libation.
But you're not like going over the top like Church of Satan or anything. It's the gentleman devil.
Exactly, there's a little bit of Louis Cifer in all of us. And my parents who's my father French Catholic and my mother Irish, and they were like, absolutely not. we don't think that this is a good idea. And she said, you're going to have people picketing outside. I'm like, wouldn't that be great? And especially because the neighborhood's very Greek Orthodox.
Yes.
So it's a bit of a tip of the hat to the neighborhood. And it's got so much breadth for branding of beers, like our American Gothic Brown, even like our coconut lemongrass, the branding on it, it's the rye Thai of like the gods in Thailand. So a lot of our branding really ties into that. Our tagline for the beer is heart and soul in every pint.
Yeah.
So heart and soul is part of our imagery in a lot of things. So it has a lot of legs to it, and it's really easy to work with and fun to come up with beer names.
Oh, it just rolls off the tongue too.
Yeah.
So it's very simple. It's not something super complicated where you're struggling to. And breweries pronounce what now? I mean, we have one back home. They especially in Quebec because it is French predominantly. And it's a Latin phrase, and you're just like, huh? How do I pronounce that?
Yes.
At first, being English and speaking French, I never learned Latin in my life, so this is all new to me.
Yeah. Well, yeah, you don't want to make it difficult. You want branding to be approachable and simple and clear and concise.
It comes along with the tastiness of the beer I've had. So speaking of, what's number 2 I'm going to be trying here?
So number 2 is you're going to try the Gates of Ale. So this was our first IPA. It's an entry-level IPA. 5.4% alcohol. It's Amarillo and Cascade hops in that one. Again, very grapefruit forward. And then it's dry hopped with Citra.
Oh, yeah.
So this is our
Classics,
session IPA. Yeah.
Yeah, classics, it tastes very sessionable. It's, I like to use the word crushable.
We use that word too, crushable.
5.4. Usually session I find is under 4, but this is surprisingly tastes along those levels too. So I'm going to be drinking too fast and not going to be able to drive anytime soon.
That's okay. You can stay here. You can sleep up here. We have lots of room.
Another fantastic beer. The bitterness is barely there for me. I could see some people who are a little more hop sensitive might not like this as much, but this is my drinking style at this time. Session IPA, where outside of the Marsden's, obviously, because it is Oktoberfest time, that I'll be shifting to that, but I'm more of a sessionable IPA person right now.
Yes, yeah, me too. I'm always drawn towards the IPAs, and but not the high bitterness. So we're very specific. Our brewer is very specific in the hops that they use, so that it is an approachable beer. Because that's the first thing everybody says. I don't want something hoppy.
Yeah.
And then they try this. They're like, oh, this is delicious.
Yeah. No, it's that right level. It adds flavor to it. It adds a little bit of kick on top of your basic ale. Here's a little bit of extra flavor, and you're getting that right through the beer too. So.
And then our branding name for Gates of Ale, Gates of Hell.
Yeah.
That's where we tie in our branding.
Speaking of the names, where do you, as a team, where do you come up with that, you and your husband?
So sometimes it's my husband and the brewer. There's other times when we have our weekly manager meetings, our brewer will come in at the end, tell us what's coming out next and what style of beer. And then as a group, we brainstorm and spitball different names till we find one that resonates with all of us. And it's like, that's the one. So like they made a beer last year. It was during a hockey season, and Boston was in the playoffs. So they came up with the name Buck Foston, which sold really well. And we've got a diehard Bruins fan on our management team.
So that's unfortunate.
It is, but he got a kick out of the name. It did very well. And this year, because of COVID, we renamed it to Suspended Season IPA. Suspended Season IPA. But yeah, so we have a lot of fun coming up with different names. Some of them are directly related to our branding, and then others are just something fun to do.
That's awesome. Now, Label, you stay pretty consistent with the Gentleman Devil, except for a can here and there from what I've seen. What made you decide to stick with the Gentleman Devil and then just have the name on the bottom?
Well, I mean, branding consistency is important for us. And when we're looking at the market, and I went to school for business marketing, and so branding is very important, obviously. And a lot of the beers that we would see out there, because everybody was just still beginning to figure their stuff out. And so you couldn't tell one company's branding from one beer to the next. It was kind of all over the place, or it didn't have a standard branding to it. So again, working with our friend Grant, he came up with the design. So we've got the standard can that my husband creates all the labels for them, but the labels are designed for us to put on the can. So we've got the consistency of the can, and then we're able to order in bulk and then just put the label on. Anything that goes into the LCBO, like the Gates of Ale, we have the design for the cans for a few of these. They haven't launched yet. But for the Thai PA, we kept everything the same except for the background imagery, which is the green and white and bright pink. So just consistency, and a lot of thought went into what are we saying, what is our message. When people look at a can, we want them to know that can is all from Louis Cifer's.
Awesome. Yeah, my beer purchasing changes from week to week. One week I'll be like, oh, just double IPAs today. Oh, I want something that has a cool label. Beer could be bad, but label's awesome. So
but this is it. Marketing sells. So when you look in the craft aisle nowadays, there's so much visual activity because
it's
it
an overload.
sells.
It's an overload
It
sometimes.
is an overload, and some companies do it much better than others. And I remember back in the day when some of these smaller independents, I would be very honest with them. I said, listen, the big wave is coming, so either you need to get on it and invest some money into this, because they wouldn't have tap handles, they wouldn't have glassware, they didn't have coasters, they didn't have anything. It's like you are going to get swallowed alive from these companies who have money.
Yeah.
Or bought out, which is,
which buying out is pretty consistent. I worked with a gentleman whose family job in Mexico is to go and just buy the craft brewery before it even comes up and running, and that's their job.
Really?
Yeah. So, yeah, legitimately in Guadalajara, I think we said Guadalajara, his cousin's job is to, this craft beer is starting to get some steam. Here's $150,000 disappear.
Buy it cheap and then watch it grow.
So,
smart. Must be nice to have that kind of money.
Yeah, exactly. Now the brew pub is very unique. I love the gold ceiling, the church style, Michael striking down the devil, and then the degradation of the church. Where'd you guys come up with that?
Well, for just the imagery for up here, simply, it was, we decided there was a few different angles we could go. It's like, do we do full moons, a whole sequence of full moons? Do we do something, again, that just ties into the Louis Cifer theme? And because it's Louis Cifer and, God and the devil are of one, and so it just made sense to get art pieces and photography that that tied both God and the devil together, and just have it a little bit more, again, a slow burn. We didn't want to be so obvious in it all. And there's still a lot of people come in here, and it's like, who is Louis Cifer? And it's like, how can you not get the name? But they take a look around. So we wanted it we didn't want to be in your face, obvious marketing. We wanted it very thought filled.
Well, even your chairs. I mean, classic style chairs, most of them. So it's like, I'm feeling comfortable. I can put my elbows on this and have a meal. And then just the Instagram worthiness of the upstairs part is fantastic too.
We do a lot of parties on the second floor. It's free to rent out, so we don't charge for it. So we do a lot of events up here. Hopefully they'll start coming back in again. Yep. But yeah, the chair design, everything had its specific purpose. So we've got a lot of Victorian feel, but then we have a lot of industrial feel, and everything's in barn board. So we wanted to have a few different elements that would complement each other in here. Same with the red. It was all there, very thoughtful with the designers and working closely with Craig and I.
It's very meticulous, very, very forward thought of this is what our brand needs to be, which is great. And just drawing people, the name alone to me is a draw. And then, like I said, busy walkway all the time. And roughly how far are you from a couple of the stadiums too? Like our walking distance, more or less?
No, we're a little too far to walk, but we still get a lot of business from the neighborhood that comes here because the subway station's right across the street. So people will subway it down to concerts. We also have the Danforth Music Hall up the street there. So we get a lot because clients will look online going pubs on the Danforth, and they inevitably find us. And so we do get a lot of out of town traffic coming in because of the Danforth Music Hall, which again, hopefully that will open up again.
Awesome. Now I saw out front you do movie nights when I guess it's a little safer. Is that?
Yes. Well, we just launched that last week, so mid-October. So every Sunday night we do a movie night up here, and it's a lot of families. We really gear it towards our families, even though we're a brew pub. We're a place that both the parents can enjoy coming here and the kids have a blast here. So we do movie nights on Sunday night. We make popcorn for free for everybody. They buy dinner, they have their drinks. We turn off the lights, start the movie. And the family business is a huge part of our business. On a Friday night at 5 o'clock, for an hour and a half. It's nothing but families in here. We do a treasure chest for the kids. They've got to follow some rules, but it keeps everybody happy.
Yes.
And, when people ask me, when they say, what are you most proud of in being an owner? And my response is when I have parents coming in for date night or a celebratory time without the kids, that they still choose to come here, even though they're here every week with their family. That's the biggest honor for me that says, okay, we're doing it right, or we're doing right by our families anyway. So movies is just another extension of that, because on Sunday nights, there's nothing going on up here. We may as well throw on a movie, whether there's 5 tables or 10 tables.
But you don't want to compete with the sports bars, obviously, because they're probably playing football or hockey or whatever else.
It depends. Playoffs take precedence. Don't get me wrong. It'll say on there, if there's playoffs, playoffs take precedent because we're packed in here. So, we weren't going for the drive of a sports bar, but kind of the neighborhood had demanded that. They wanted TVs because there's only one other place on the street, downtown, that has big screen TVs, or a place this size. And, our clientele is a bit different from the clientele of this other place. So we kind of had to pivot a little bit, getting more TVs so that we could cater to the sports crowd, because it was very busy during playoffs.
Yeah, well, I mean, playoffs, when Team Canada is playing in the Olympics, things like that. Sochi Olympics, we were talking about it previously, it's like the bars downtown Montreal, we're open at 6:30 a.m. Come watch Canada win gold. So it's like, okay, so I'll gladly drink a beer in honor of Canada starting that early.
Yes, well, now the AGCO lets us serve earlier now, too, because it didn't make a lot of sense to start open at those hours for coffee and not much else. So, sports has been a big cornerstone of our business, too. It's unfortunate that we're out, but we had a good run. I'm very proud of our boys, so next year.
Well, you have the Toronto FC still playing, so you got that.
The East End, our collaboration of a bunch of other breweries. We were doing the soccer down. It was a whole bunch of us breweries doing the beer tents down there for the last couple of years. But we don't get a big turnout for watching it here.
It's soccer. It's North America.
We're not quite different there yet.
I'm World Cup. I'm assuming you guys are pretty busy with, especially if Greece is in. It's like
busy for that, 100%.
Awesome. So you mentioned collaborations. What are some collabs you've done for the beers, either with coffee makers, bread, bagel places that, just reuse our bread, make a bread beer and stuff like that?
Well, we had a collaboration for a couple of years with actually Dark Horse Coffee Shop. So we had an ale that we did with them. So they would literally, one at a time, make their little pods of coffee. I mean, we call it a tea when you put it in, but their coffee. And had a fabulous beer with them that we did for a couple of years. The cost of it stopped making sense at a certain point because the coffee that they would bring in is so expensive, and we would use so much of it that it was a fantastic beer, but what we'd have to charge for it just stopped making sense at a certain point. We've collaborated. We used to run competitions every year for best recipe. And whoever had the best recipe that they submitted, they would come in and brew with our brewmaster, and then they would come back a couple weeks later, and they would have a dinner for 4. So that was part of what they would win. They got to brew with a friend, with our brewmaster, and then have a full dinner for 4 to enjoy their beer.
Very cool. I like that. So I guess you have like a test batch system, more or less, for that?
A pilot, We've got a whole bunch of pilots, which we are always up and running to test new batches, to try different things before we go on to the grand scale. And it's worked out for us. It's done very well. It keeps, we have a lot of taps, so it keeps the taps full, and it also keeps our team engaged. We've got Noel, one of our managers. He made a summer raspberry lemonade gay ale for Pride. So he does that every year with our brewer, and that does very well. And the staff are always welcome to come in or suggest something. So the staff are very involved in some of the beers. And, we've had Cameron's come in. We've had some different brewmasters from other places come in as well and brew with us. Awesome.
Any dream collabs that you'd like to, once it's kind of safe to travel or head anywhere else, breweries that you are really on that list of, I'd love to be able to brew with these people?
You know what? That is a better question for my brewer. For myself, You know, it's tough pickings to say who, because there's so many fantastic companies out there to work with, and right now we're so busy just trying to keep up with what's happening right now that I don't know when a time would come that we could collaborate again. But again, I've moved more towards the operational side of things, so I think our brewmaster and my husband, they would be the right ones to answer that question.
Okay, we'll get them another time. Maybe we can swing back around 1 year later update.
Yeah,
And get some
exactly. Who have you
information on
collaborated
that.
with? Yes.
So, yeah, that's awesome. So what's this third beer I'm going to be trying?
Okay, the third beer is the Tepache, and that is part of our sour series. So our brewmaster is always doing a sours beer. So he called it Tepache because Tepache, it's good on the nose too.
Yeah, it went right on my
Literally.
nose.
And so this was inspired for him of a Spanish cocktail called Tepache. And it's naturally fermented with pineapple and lime kettle. It's a lime kettled sour.
I'm getting almost like an apple pie taste on the first
Yep.
sip. Ooh. Like a cinnamon apple pie.
Yeah, so in post he does a cinnamon tea.
Wow. This is wild.
There's a lot
This
going
is a
on.
sour? Mm-hmm. This is not a sour.
There's a lot going on in that beer.
Ooh. Wow. It's all sorts of... My palate doesn't know what's going on.
Yeah.
So...
The sour
wow.
series that he does is actually really amazing. I have never been a fan of sour beers, and some of the sours that he comes out with, I was like, this is not a sour. I mean, it's a sours, but I will drink it.
It doesn't taste like a sour in any way. It doesn't... It tastes like I'm drinking a cinnamon apple pie.
Yeah,
So-
it's delicious. You know,
Yeah.
for the first few years that we opened up, I would not let them do any sours. I said, listen, the market is just learning about beer.
Yeah.
Let's keep all of our taps focused on approachable beers and teach them. And as the market evolves with craft beer and the customers evolve in their knowledge of it, then we'll break into the sours. And it's been a great series for us. People come in and specifically, what sours do you have? So,
Yeah.
you know, the opportunities of having the breadth of different kinds of beer and having them all move because people want them. People understand craft beer now. And it was only like 5 years, and now it's mainstream.
So somebody comes along, tries your delicious 11 beers on tap, on tasters, on pints, however they come about. And you mentioned you kind of have a collab with everybody in the East End. Who are some friends you suggest they go try after?
Oh gosh, all of them. You know, obviously left field for us, we have the utmost respect for Mark and the team there. There's such a great brewery and really smart in how they've done business, and they were one of the first in the East End, so mad respect for them. Obviously Godspeed, Eastbound. There's Radical Road, much props to them too. And I mean, they don't have a big system, but that's the little engine that really could, you know? So there's so many. The East End, I think, is strong competition against the West End. You know, the West End and East End of Toronto has always been a little bit of competitiveness there, but we have some incredible brewers in the East End, and with incredible ideas and marketing and solid beer that, you know, we tip our hats to them all the time. They make great stuff.
I love the concept of left field brewing, how it's like pretty much all baseball related. So
Yeah.
that's the sports guy in me is, oh, sweet, baseball. Oh, let's name this. Oh, cool, let's name this. Oh, let's name the no-hitter. So.
Yeah, or their most
Yeah.
recent one, cold beer,
Yeah.
ice cold beer. I was like, oh, so clever, so clever.
We have our third ever interview to Luke's. They just made a beer called Bière. And like, this is our version of a macro.
Yep.
That's it. So it's simple, but it works.
Beer.
So sometimes simple doesn't work for everybody, but for me, sometimes I just want to sit down and drink the beer called Pina Colada Sour, or this, or
That's
whatever.
right.
So-
That's right.
And
That's
then
right.
sometimes I want to have the Gates of Hell, or the Tiki Sour. And stuff.
Yep, exactly. And some of our branding is just, this is the beer.
Yeah.
This is what it is.
That's great. Awesome. So I like to say, because we are in COVID times, and I personally won't be getting on a plane anytime soon until it's a little safer. When it's safe to travel in a plane again, a beer vacation that you need to go on.
A beercation.
Beercation, yes.
Well, I would go back to a beercation that I've already done once. That would be Weißstefaner in Freising, Germany. We had the honor years ago of being invited to visit the brewery and have a whole weekend with them and go to Oktoberfest. And what an amazing weekend, but the heritage and the culture behind that brewery is, it's the oldest brewery in the world. And we got to go through all of the facilities, and it was just an incredible walkthrough for somebody who's been in the beer industry for 27 years. It was an incredible experience to have. And Belgium. I'd love to do Belgium and visit some of the lambic processes, and just the Belgian beer is, incredible. And that's sort of where my cornerstone of my wheelhouse began, was really Belgian beer.
Yeah, I'm adamant about drinking with monks because we pretty much have the same hairstyle, and I have no problem wearing robes if I have to.
Fair.
Let's drink some lambics where the yeast is literally falling off the wood into your open fermenters.
Right. I think the process is magical, and I think both of those countries, the origins of beer making is, for me, it's magical, and it really drove my passion for understanding and appreciating beer, craft beer, and international beer.
You mentioned like Germany's oldest brewery too. I was reading a book about, this brewery was 300 years old, and then World War II happened and it got destroyed. And, this happened and this brewery got destroyed. I'm sad because these places might still exist if it weren't for
it's true
man going against man. So.
It's true, but when you go if you've ever been to Germany, especially Munich, the cultural heritage and the people is just such an amazing country. Regardless of all the war-torn everything, the architectural influences, we were in awe of everything about it.
Yeah, as a show, we're hoping to get out there at some point.
Oh, and the beer halls, and you're in underground bunkers drinking beer at picnic table. Like,
that sounds awesome.
What? It's just surreal. It's the most palpable beer experience you could have. Breathing, living, eating, seeing, that I've ever seen in my life.
I mean, like I said, I'm confident that we'll all be traveling again. But first and foremost, support local, support Canada.
100%.
And then go spend your money elsewhere. So.
That's right. Yeah, support local. Everybody's been great in craft beer. Everybody's on the bandwagon, and it's been a fantastic opportunity for us and so many of our friends to get into the beer industry and do what we love to do.
Mm-hmm. Kind of after COVID, let's say, what do you feel is next for the Louis Cifer brand?
After COVID, we're in development of a few more of our branding can designs to get the Gates of Ale into the LCBO, the Whitcraft into the LCBO. So certainly driving force to do that more is our number one focus, to grow our portfolio in the LCBO. And hopefully the LCBO is going to branch out and allow us to maybe... I think we're at a crux where it's going to be time for the AGCO to open up craft beer stores that the rest of us can compete in a fair market, because the competition is so fierce and the beer store is so costly, and we need help. We need help from the AGCO to open that up, and I think that there's a demand for it.
Oh, 100%. I mean, my friends and I, literally from Montreal to Hawkesbury is a hop's given a jump. It's an hour.
Yeah.
And there's one of the biggest LCBOs in Ontario is there. So I'm like, I can either buy all these beer and then on the way home stop at the local beer store and then buy all the Quebec beers too. But it is pretty restrictive. I know Ottawa, there's a distribution center at one of the LCBOs in Ottawa, so their craft beer selection is phenomenal. Do you find the demand for the LCBO is kind of beyond some people's range, do you think? Or
as far as pricing?
Pricing, demand of, we need 1,000 cases now.
Oh, well, I think on a couple of folds. I think that the LCBO doesn't have enough space to carry everybody. And there's so many fantastic beers that need to have the opportunity to be out there. And I believe in fair and broad competition for sure. So I think there's an opportunity for the LCBO to make more money as well as all of us make more money in doing this. And I think that it is tough for these companies that especially there's so many craft breweries opening up and they don't have a chance to get in the LCBO. So where are they going to sell?
Yeah.
How are they going to get to market when they're in Georgetown? So it's really going to, separate the men from the boys, if you will, when it comes to that, because unless you've got some deep pockets that can carry you through, this is a very tough business with very small margins, and one SKU can you not quit your day job?
Yeah.
So it's a lot of work for very little return on it. So the growth opportunity is very important to be able to do.
If the opportunity was there for you to slap a French sticker on there and get your beers out to Quebec, do you think that'd be an option?
We are happy to sell to Quebec. Absolutely. Ottawa actually is a huge market for us. Mm-hmm. We sell a lot of Thai PA in Ottawa. We don't know what's going on with that market, but we're happy to serve it. And yeah, we're just not in a position yet where we can meet the demand to go across Canada. Mm-hmm. We have the opportunity with our logistics channels to be able to do it, but it's also with the brewing because we're just keeping up with the 2 restaurants right now.
So we spoke with Irshad. He's from Craft Tap Incorporated, and he's trying to become the Amazon of craft beer. And I don't know how he sets it up, but I was able to get beers from your friends Radical Road shipped to me at my house.
Yes.
Would that be would you talk to them maybe about?
Yeah, I would totally be open to that. Again, distribution, because I am the GM as well as the owner here. My husband is the brewery manager as well as the owner here. Yeah. So we're wearing so many hats that just doing the distribution channels that we're doing currently is like a lot.
Yeah.
So to have the assistance without, part of our challenge is we didn't want to have to charge so much for customers to enjoy our products. So mm-hmm. It's kind of like, let's not make that move until we've got good channels that are affordable for the consumer. So yeah, I'd be totally open to it, but I'd have to investigate it more, because if it's like how the skip the dishes and all DoorDash is and take 30%, it's like, we don't even make 30%. So
I don't know. I mean, I know they do it with Radical Road where it was a mixed 12-pack where it was 3 of each kind of their main beers. And then I get a notice in my mailbox saying, hey, come and pick this up at Canada Post.
Amazing.
And I'm like, beer! So.
Yeah. COVID forced us all to pivot in different directions. And luckily, the AGCO was open to these changes to allow companies to get beer through mm-hmm. the post office or get beer through Uber Eats.
Yeah.
And what an opportunity for all of us. It's a lot more costly and time consuming. Again, it's just my husband and I trying to do everything. Yeah. So we just stuck to super local market because it's like, I can't pack up beer all day long to run to the post office. Yeah. So I know a lot of companies took advantage of that, but that was their only option. Yeah. For us, the front door and local delivery was more than enough for us to be able to handle.
But it's keeping you busy, it's keeping you surviving, and that's the most important part is, personally, in my perspective, I need you all to survive.
Yes.
So
yes.
The more of you survive, the happier my palate is in the end. As long as my friends' palates too. We all love craft beer. I got my 75-year-old father into craft beer a couple of years ago.
Yeah.
He was Labatt 50 to the core, and I'm like, here, try this. And now he's like, oh, pick me up 50. Pick me up like a 12-pack of IPAs and whatever.
Amazing.
So,
you jumped to the IPAs. No, it's awesome how mainstream it's become. The demand of other restaurants or licensees wanting,
mm-hmm.
Gone are the days where it's the one tap of Molson's for 10 years, or you want Guinness and you have to carry all of our beers. My other place is called Stout Irish Pub. Yeah. We never had Guinness on, and there was pushback on there. And I said, I don't want to work with Diageo. At that time the company was not well run, and I was not going to be at the mercy of being mm-hmm. told what I can and cannot carry because I want to support local stouts. It might not be nitro, but it's a stout, and we make some really great barley days. Had a fantastic stout. Rest in peace of that company, but they had some Wind and Sail was one of my favorite beers of all time. And I'm sure a lot of your listeners who just got in craft beer, they wouldn't have even heard of Barley Days. That was a long time ago.
I've heard the name, but I've never been. My personal craft beer journey's only really been exploding the last 10 years. But whenever I'm in Toronto, I have family in Cambridge, so it's like Cambridge, Kitchener, Guelph, Toronto. We're hop, skip, and a jump from Ottawa and that stuff. So it's like, oh, let's go experience Ontario, but we also have great beer at home. So.
Yeah, well, everybody's doing a fantastic job in this. The only challenge is being sustainable, and hopefully, again, the AGCO allows us to open up boutique places that all of us can be a part of and really grow, because the demand is there, and the LCBOs aren't big enough to hold us all. And there's an opportunity there for all of us, and they can make more money. Everybody can make more money and stay competitive and stay in business.
You need the beer store, not the beer store, or something like that.
That's right.
It's just
and that's a perfect name. You talk about simple, clever names. Not the beer store. Done, sold, so good, and then you'll deal with a lawsuit. But that's something.
Patent pending, trademark available, registered. Perfect. So I have no other questions for you today. The beers are fantastic. I really appreciate you having us today, having your time. For those listeners and viewers who are coming into Toronto, let the people know where they can find you.
Oh, you can find us on our website, louisciferbrewworks.com. You can go visit us on Twitter Sphere and Instagram on Louis Cifer TO. And where else?
Where can people physically find you?
417 Danforth. We're in the heart of Greektown. We're just at Chester Station. There's green pea parking right across the street. Our retail store is open from 11 a.m. to 11 p.m. every day of the week. You can come in and have brunch, dinner. If you're not a beer drinker, I have a fabulous selection of 16 wines by the glass, as well as our ciders. We have a whole cocktail menu around slushy ciders, because we make our cider into a slushy. So we have something for everybody. So the beer lover in you, bring the family out, because they can try anything. They don't just have to be beer, and we do flights. So there's something for everybody to be able to try a little bit of everything of who we are and come experience Louis Cifer.
Awesome. So you're here to hear, and you're going to hear it from us, and it's all available in the show notes of everything that was just mentioned. As for us, you can find us allbeerinside.com is the website, at allbeerinside on all the social media, and at the end of every episode, drink craft, not crap.